I don't want to have to focus on every single social media platform. So I do choose a handful, but I choose the ones where I feel like this podcast, for instance. When this podcast comes out, I can post it on Instagram, my Instagram story. I can post it on my LinkedIn. I can post it on my Facebook off of just one thing.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How's it going, bud?
We're hanging in there. New Year's off, kicking, rolling.
Yeah.
And everyone's writing their goals down or had their goals down. Everyone thinks that this is going to be different. So I wish everyone luck there. But no, we're rolling. We're, kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, I hear it.
Taking names and kicking ass, however that saying goes.
Can't rely on you for anything.
Nope.
Any good New Year's resolutions, or you're not one of those guys?
No, I'm not one of those guys, although I am a fat pig. So I have been putting an added layer of get your fat ass to work out. So it was disgusting. I got on the scale and I said, this is just this. It keeps going in the wrong direction. Yeah. So I've been actually aggressively attacking that. It hasn't been a New Year's thing. It's been the last couple of weeks. So I have a personal goal to get down to 200 pounds. Which will be a nice amount. I would like to get down a little lower. My wife said, you look like a skeleton when you're lower than that. Although I'm not that tall. So 200 pounds is pretty fat still, but to get into better shape, that's the big one that I have in front of me every day. Other than that, just tweaking some business systems, trying to figure out, what this all means, how we can do it better, all that good stuff. But I think everyone's in that boat, but the health one for me is the biggest part of 2021.
Mm-hmm. So 200 pounds, do you have a goal date in mind or no? So
I do have a end of year goal, but I am looking to lose 10 pounds a quarter. So I actually have that written down. So that would be, I would go past 200 if I hit that. But I do have a quarterly goal to get, to lose 10 pounds a quarter, which is not crazy, right? It's an easier way to look at the massive loss. So I'm off to a good start. I know it's only 5 days in, but it started a little bit before the New Year. So I'm excited. I re-kicked up the motivation from, back in my athletic days when I actually had to do shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just checked the calendar. March 30th is a Tuesday, which is when we record all of these. So we're back in on March. Technically, the 31st is the end of the quarter, so you'll have an extra day to maybe sweat some extra pounds out if you're not quite there. But
I crank the heat up, put some sweatshirts on, and run around the house. But exactly. No, I like that. Actually, a good buddy of ours who is actually on our podcast, an investor of ours, Ryan Daigle, had a post on LinkedIn about an accountability group for fitness goals. And I actually said, I think an accountability group, or at least having that date out there, knowing that I'm going to have to come here for all three people that listen to us. I don't want to let them down, right? I think that's super important. I think if anyone's listening, early on in the year, just having your goals marked down and someone you could talk to them about it is super important. So I think, knowing that that's out there now publicly, I got more motivation behind me. So I'm excited.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to have to come up with some sort of penalty or something if we don't hit it.
Hey, I'm all for that. I'll put the penalty out there for anyone that is subscribed and refers a subscriber. I will donate something, whether it's a Starbucks card or something like that. I have no problem with doing that if I miss my goal.
Ooh, that's a pretty loose penalty, but we'll figure it out when we get there. So we'll see what it is. Are we throwing out a starting weight or no? Are we going to do that privately?
No, we're about 235 pounds, 200, give or take.
Gotcha. I'm pretty close to you, so.
Yeah, you're also like 3 inches taller.
You said it, not me. All right, but enough about fitness. It's great to hear about it. Excited to see what happens. But I do want to get into today's episode. We got a great guest on today. Excited to hear his story and learn a little bit from him. So with that being said, Shaynon, thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you kick us off? Tell everybody a little bit about you, where you're from, your journey, etc.
Okay, yeah. So I'm from a town in upstate New York, way upstate in the Finger Lakes, called Geneva, New York.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually where I went to college, and originally wanted to be an attorney. So for undergrad, I was doing stuff for that. But it was my senior year, no, junior year, I failed an economics class. And in order to make that up, I had to do two things. One was uh, for half the credit, take a couple of internships. And then the other half, I took like piano lessons or just something new in art
Mm-hmm.
because I went to a liberal arts school. One of the internships that I took was in real estate, and I loved it. Being a real estate agent was always in my mind, but it's not like something I wanted to do growing up. But when I did it, I was like, this is something else that I think I could be good at and that I would love doing. So when it came time for me to take the law SATs, the LSATs, the night before I got really sick. So the next day I couldn't take it. And I thought, okay, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe I'd take a year off before going to law school and explore either being a paralegal or getting into real estate as an agent. So I went that route to be an agent, did some interviews in the city. And long story short, I wound up at a company called Marcus & Millichap, which is actually where I met John. I ended up in the Brooklyn office there. And I had no experience at all besides the internship that I had in my little town, but nothing to prepare me for what I would be doing at Marcus Millichap in commercial real estate. But I have to say the trainings there, they really helped. I learned a lot between that and also just doing it, like getting on the phone and cold calling people, going on the appointments with my mentor and just different things like that. And then I want to say about a year and a half later, maybe 2 years later, I decided to get into property management. So I started at a company called Vornado Realty Trust in the city, managing their office buildings throughout Manhattan and some retail as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I wanted to move up a level and I saw an opportunity at Empire State Realty Trust, which is the company that owns the Empire State Building. And I actually I made my way up to being one of the building managers for the Empire State Building. So I learned a whole lot with that. That was really cool. Great experience. One of the best projects that I think I worked on there, well, besides like getting to know all the tenants, like I love doing that, but was the new observatory that they have. Just being a part of that whole process was really nice. And after that, while I was there, I missed being in commercial real estate sales.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing it on the side a little bit. So I parked my license under someone, but it wasn't enough to me. Like I just wanted to dive back in full time, especially because that's what you have to do if you really want to be successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. When was that? End of 2018, I got back into it full time. And from there, so I got back into commercial real estate, strictly commercial sales. There's a guy named Paul Massey. He had a firm called Massey Knackle, him and Bob Knackle in New York. But then they sold it a few years ago to Cushman & Wakefield. And Paul Massey, at the time that I was leaving the Empire State Building, was starting his new firm called B6 Real Estate Advisors. So I joined that. But then after a year, like I started seeing the use of technology for real estate, but mainly in the residential field, and including social media too. And like, I was so obsessed with that part. I thought, let me get into that and let me see what firms are really focusing on that. And that's when I looked at Compass, and within like a week of deciding to move, I was at Compass. And now I'm doing commercial real estate and residential real estate there, and I'm loving it. It's been a little over a year now, and I don't plan on leaving.
Awesome. No, I think that's a lot to unpack. And I think it'd be interesting to hear how you and John look at things coming from, I think it was the same exact office, right? Or different,
Yes.
Just same company.
Yep, same office.
Yeah. Curious to see how things have gone for the two of you. But what was it about commercial real estate and the sales that really, brought you back to it from the property management side?
The first thing was I like that it's my own business. Like everything that I do, I'm working for myself and for future me.
Mm-hmm.
Where at the Empire State Building, it's, even though it was a fun thing, every day was different. You never knew what you were getting into. At the end of the day, you don't really control your income. Like you can work so hard, extremely hard, but your income level is going to be set at the same.
Mm-hmm.
In sales, the harder you work, the more you make, and the more like you feel good about what you're doing because you see it grow.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that are just built a little bit differently that like to have that control and go towards that entrepreneurship. And I think being an agent or a broker gives you that platform to kind of do it, but also, not necessarily build something from scratch where there's kind of a sort of repeatable process that you can kind of base your stuff off of instead of going completely left field and doing something, as well as being in an industry that proven time and time again over the years that is highly successful and, can really allow you to build something and, build something that's sustainable as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, how, as you talked about going over to Compass with the social media side of things, there's been a large push, obviously, over the last, I would say probably 5 years on the residential side for people to continue to do it more and more. And I think obviously the epitome of that is Ryan Serhant, who just went off on his own and developed this massive social media conglomerate type thing based around his own brokerage, I believe. How much have you seen that help your business, or is it still an ongoing process?
So I got to say it's an ongoing process. No matter how much I use it and how much I grow, I still think it's going to be an ongoing process just because of how much social media is evolving. And this is a topic I could spend so much time on because I've been so obsessed with it lately. But as far as it helping my business, my Instagram, I was able to grow to about 17,000 followers now. And what it does, like having all those followers doesn't really mean you're going to get a bunch of leads from them,
mm-hmm.
but it helps with my branding. So, on mine, if you go on there, like everything looks good. You have pictures of New York City, you have pictures of me, and you have some captions that give some great insights for New York City. So that helps for branding, but actually getting leads from them, it takes a little more work. And that is something I'm learning now, is that what you really have to do is engage with your audience, whether it's doing videos, getting on the Instagram stories or making reels, talking about something of value, or even just reaching out directly to people who live in the area where you're doing business.
Mm-hmm.
The video part is what I've found to be helpful in getting more leads. Just over this past, like between November, Thanksgiving break and Christmas, I've gotten over 10 leads just between Instagram, TikTok, which I never thought I'd be on TikTok and getting leads from, and YouTube.
Gotcha.
So it definitely helps with that and branding.
Mm-hmm. Has that been on the residential side or the commercial side?
Residential.
Gotcha.
Commercial. So I'll say one thing with the commercial, it does help with commercial too, because with my YouTube videos, because I started a YouTube, I incorporate them into my weekly newsletter that I send to my list of commercial real estate contacts. Mm-hmm. So now instead of just seeing words in an email, they can click on a link and they see me actually speaking to them. Mm-hmm. So it helps with them just, getting to know me better, really.
I have a question. So like something that I struggle with, and Chris is really good at it, is the social media side, right? That's actually one of the business things that this year I wanted to put more emphasis on. I think I've posted like more times on LinkedIn this year than I have in the last, 20. How does someone, and I think any listener, because social media is changing everything, right? It's completely changing how I think business will be done on the grand scheme of things. But for any listeners or for yourself or for my, selfish benefit, what does a schedule look like for you? Because I get your monthly newsletters. I see what you're doing. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, not only are you a good friend, but I think that you do it really well, as does Chris. But how does someone manage that while still trying to get listings, sell listings, get commercial, get residential? How do you incorporate that into a schedule, or what apps or anything? What do you do to make sure you don't miss that? Because all social media is, in my opinion, is a consistency thing, like anything else, like cold calling, direct mail. It's consistency, and you got to get it scheduled. You got to get it done. But how do you manage the time when you're driving into the city right after this, but then you're going to have social media posts coming out? So how do you manage that whole time, or what tips can you give anyone listening to help manage that and help build that social media following?
Yeah. So I wouldn't put too much stress on yourself for, the posting on social media and everything. What I did in the beginning, because I used to post every single day on Instagram, Monday through Friday. And the way I would do it was just during my day. I wouldn't even think about it during my day. If I see a nice view of New York City, if I'm walking down the street, walking to work, or at one of my buildings that I'm managing, I'm in a suite and I see a nice view, you just take a picture. And then during your commute, like during my morning commute, is when I would just put together a caption, just like some quote or something that's motivating me that I just want to share. And then come up with a bunch of hashtags that relate to not only the picture, but also the caption. And then just post it, put it out there. And after that, I don't want people to feel like you have to be on Instagram all day managing it and responding to everyone. Like in the beginning, just do that. Like that's how I grew. And that was my consistency. Every morning on the train, that's what I'm doing. I'm coming up with something. And just during my daily life, I'm finding these pictures. Now, I don't post every day anymore, especially because now I'm focusing on more platforms. So what I do is, like, I'm going into the city today. After this, I'm going to list 2 more apartments, and I have 2 other listings in the village. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a video, and I'm just incorporating what I'm actually doing for a post. So when I go there, I'll take a video, here's my phone this way, and then I'll turn it over and I'll take a video in the landscape mode. So now I have content for an Instagram story, where, the vertical video, a TikTok, and a reel. And then the other way, just quickly going through, talking about the apartment in the landscape mode. Now I have a YouTube video, and that's just something that I'm doing during my normal day. It's not like I'm going out of the way to find content. So I think that is really helpful for anyone who's busy with actually, working in their business, but they want to have content for, branding themselves, is just film what you're doing, go through the day, film that stuff. And during those times where you're just sitting on a train, or, however you're commuting to work or commuting anywhere, or waiting for a train, you just can sit there and write up a caption. Just try to utilize your time when you're not busy, quote unquote.
No, I think that's perfect. And I think the other thing, done is better than perfect, right? And, listen, everyone cares about quality. Like, I didn't know the landscape. I didn't know that it would matter for YouTube or not, right? So I just learned something. But I think at the end of the day, even if you didn't know that, just doing it. And like you said, there are times throughout the day when you can. And I think that's what people have to realize, is that, I know Chris and I speak about it all the time. Our podcast, the first episode we did, is actually scary, right? It was in this room. It was just not good. And we tried, we thought it was going to be great, but now it's evolved, right? And my microphone is not here, so my audio sucks, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think you just got to put yourself out there, right? You put yourself out there with the content you put out there, and eventually over time, that's all it is. It's not an easy button thing. And I think everybody wants to push a button, get an app, and just post all over the place 24/7, but it doesn't work that way. And I think you just outline that as just go about your day doing things and do it, and just build off of it as you go. So I think that's important.
Yeah. And just to build on that, if I can, like you said, or like we both said, just going about your day doing this stuff, but also with the quality, like, don't really worry about the quality too much. If you get on something and you're genuine, it's going to show to your audience, and they're going to want to work with you more than if it looks like you're acting and like everything is staged. So don't worry about that. And also with the podcast, you mentioned with the podcast, your first one, I watched some of my early videos. I'm still new at YouTube, but I watched some of the early ones and I cringed. I'm like, wow, I would do that so much differently now. And I look at the ones, that are more recent, and I feel good that I'm actually getting better at them. So you have to start somewhere. It's just a matter of just doing it, and you'll get better with time.
Agree.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too that I think people get hung up with is like even the term social media. Like social media is just an extension of the internet, right? Like I think one of the things that people are like, oh, I don't, this social media thing, but like if you ask somebody like, hey, if you owned a restaurant, what's something that you could be doing to make your restaurant better? I think every single person would say getting good reviews on Yelp and Google and having photos of your food. Instagram and TikTok and all these different social media platforms and podcasts are just extensions of that, of another way to get something out there. Now, social media can be done for a totally fun thing. It doesn't have to be for a business thing, but if you are looking at it from a branding, marketing, business aspect, it's not this childish or, non-business thing. It can totally be used that way, but because people, a lot of the people use it for entertainment or for fun or to relax, they see it, in my opinion, too many people see it as not an extension of the internet. It's just another face of it. It just happens to be an app. It's literally the same thing as a website. It just happens to be separate, right? Like you can go to facebook.com, you can go to instagram.com, you can go to all these websites, you can look at TikToks on your desktop, but everybody uses the app. So people view it as a different way. And for me, I think too many people have to get over that limitation of, hey, this is just another facet of the internet. It's another way to brand and market yourself. And I think one thing that you touched on, Shaynon, that I think is interesting, and it's something I've been thinking a lot more about, is there's this mindset of be everywhere and post everywhere and be on all different platforms. But when I look at some of the most successful people that grow these followings, they start on one or maybe two, and they like really hone in, because every different website and platform is very different, right? Your LinkedIn is very different from TikTok, just like Google is very different from YouTube, or maybe, I mean, not very different, but they are different. Even though a lot of people use Google and YouTube for the same function, to look stuff up and to learn things, there's still a different way people present on it. And I think people need to find the medium that best fits who they are, as well as best fits what they're looking to accomplish. There's so many people that are fantastic writers and blogs have kind of gone out of style, but there's still people with massive blogs out there that get tons of hits and build up these massive companies. There was recently this guy during the pandemic who had like no business degree, like no business experience or like the stock market. And he started this newsletter on coronavirus and business. And eventually he got it was a paid newsletter, and he had people in like the SCC and like the Fed that started paying to read his opinion, and he started making money from it. And he just found his niche and just honed in on it until that, eventually it started working for him. So it's something I've been personally thinking about a lot, because I sometimes think I spread myself too thin across multiple different things, and it's hindering me. And I think it's something that a lot of other people need to consider, of picking a platform, picking a medium, picking a way that you can do it that best makes sense for you and backs into what you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, just to elaborate on that too, like I was saying, speaking with John about using content and just spreading it across the several platforms that you have, I think that is one good thing to do, because so for me, I don't want to be everywhere. Mm-hmm. It would be nice, but I don't want to have to focus on every single social media platform. Mm-hmm. So I do choose a handful, but I choose the ones where I feel like this podcast, for instance. When this podcast comes out, I can post it on Instagram, my Instagram story. I can post it on my LinkedIn. I can post it on my Facebook, off of just one thing. It's not like I have to do this one for Facebook, this and another one for LinkedIn. You know what I'm saying? So mm-hmm. you can use one content piece for multiple platforms, I think that's the best. and it saves you time and it helps you get in front of more people.
Mm-hmm. See, I disagree slightly with that, because one of the things that we've been doing that I've been noticing a lot, and I've actually been keeping track of it, is we repurpose the podcast and put it on different platforms, but we use almost the same clips across all of them. And I've found that LinkedIn is significantly worse than a lot of the other platforms for the video. And as I started diving into it, I found that LinkedIn finds better quality when people write written posts. And it's something that I've been tracking as I've been doing a couple written posts as well as video posts. And the engagement, the number of people that view the post and view the video is, I mean, night and day. I mean, I've had videos that get 200 views, and then written posts that have 1,800, 2,500, 3,500 views of people that have seen it and, have, dozens of comments on it. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to repurpose something you use on one platform for another. But ultimately, I think there has to be some sort of plan behind how to optimize and what's the word I'm looking for? And how to strategize your voice kind of and your message for the different platforms, because LinkedIn is more of a B2B than I think a B2C, even though you can still get, your end consumer, like somebody that's looking to buy a house. But as, especially in your situation, as, somebody who's selling, residential and commercial, I would be tailoring my message completely different on LinkedIn, looking more at people that are going to be buying commercial spaces that are businessmen or syndication groups or funds than I would be what I'm doing on, say, Instagram or TikTok, which is going to be way more heavily focused, in my opinion, on the residential side, which is going to be individuals, young couples, young families, people moving out of apartments. Your message is going to be very different, in my opinion, and how you're going to be presenting different listings or different lease spaces or engaging with potential clients or, creating content that brings value to those people. The video that you make for TikTok is never going to do as well, in my opinion, on LinkedIn, because your audience isn't there. Same thing with LinkedIn, right? If you crafted this really well-written blog post on why, retail space on, the Lower East Side is going to do well versus, Midtown or something like that, people on TikTok aren't going to give two shits, right? Most likely, because the audience isn't there yet. Now that it may be there, but still, I think your message is going to be different. So I think, there's nothing wrong with taking that and putting it on TikTok or vice versa. But I think when you consciously craft a message for the specific platform and who your audience is, that piece of content is going to have way more engagement and quality than it would if you just repurposed it. So I think having both or sprinkling in is good. At very least, it's testing different things. But I think crafting the message and being thoughtful about it is way more powerful and a better use of your time, probably.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And thanks for elaborating on that. So, you did bring up a good point. Like if you put something on TikTok and then you put that same thing on LinkedIn, you're not going to have the same reaction. And you do have to, consciously make that decision. If you're doing an Instagram post, like, is this going to be good on my LinkedIn as well? Like not everything that I post on one platform is going to go to another. But, given an example of something that I would, but just a different message is, I'll give an example. I just listed a winery in upstate New York that I posted on LinkedIn, I posted on Instagram, and I posted on Facebook. Each one of them, and I'm going to post on TikTok as well. But each one of them, they have a different message, a different caption. Because the caption, you brought up, is what is going to help people react to your post, to your video. So for LinkedIn, you mentioned that LinkedIn, they like when you write a well-written post, that's maybe a longer thought piece. So for the winery, what I could do now that I know this, because you're helping me with that too, I didn't know that, is on there I can write a whole post about, the region, the deal and everything like that. And that's what people are going to respond to on LinkedIn. But on TikTok, I'm going to do more of a experience thing. Like I'll bring people
get
inside
shit faced and drink some wine.
Exactly. Yeah. Show like fun. People actually having fun there, tasting the wine. It's a fun place to be. It's the same, content, but with a different message that you're using on a different platform. So definitely agree with you on that. And I'm going to be taking that into account on LinkedIn going forward. So thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah, that was like that. There was like that post going around where it showed like the 4 social media platforms, and like it had like different pictures of the. It was like in LinkedIn you had a suit on, and Facebook family. On Twitter you were naked, like whatever it was. But like I think that's the message behind it, right? I think anyone starting, pick one and just do it, and be really good at it. Whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, just do it, right? And then as you grow, and both of you guys have done this, you can experiment with different things and try different things. And that piece of information is super important to anyone starting. But if they go on LinkedIn and they start posting pictures of them and their fraternity or with their friends getting hammered, that's probably not going to work, right? You want it to be more professional focused. So I think understanding the platform and then putting your message, and you could use the same content across each, but you got to make sure that the message is represented across. And I think that is an easy way to be out there in more places. But at the same time, it's like, riches and niches, or, when they made the iPad or the iPhone or the iPod, whatever the hell it's called, then when they first created it, the whole entire purpose was let's just do this better than anyone else. And that iPod basically made Apple explode because everyone bought all their products after one thing just dominated that space. Because I remember MP3 players, right? And then this little iPod came out. It was like game changing. And now, phones, computers, TVs, and they have, I read an article the other day, they're creating an electric car, right? It's just, but they just dominated one thing, became the expert, and then just blew up. So I think that's how the approach of social media can work for anybody, is just pick one, do it well, schedule that, and be that person, and then you can spin off of that after you are more experienced, when you know what you're doing and you want to look to build a brand across the platform. So I think that's important, and that touches on what we were just speaking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of it too is the time factor as well. Like if you try to thoughtfully craft a message consistently on multiple platforms, it's going to take up your entire day. So a lot of times you see this, and if you're trying to run a business or do other things, it's next to impossible, right? You're going to be working 120-hour weeks, 150-hour weeks. It's not realistic. Where you see people eventually expand into, multiple platforms and do it really well is eventually they have a business that blows up, or they're making enough money that they can hire teams that can do it and can focus on different platforms. Where you see people get to that stage is they really hone in on that one or maybe two, and they can really build it up and focus on it, and then expand into other things as time goes on. But I mean, there's plenty of people that just stick with one and they do really well. Like the one that comes to mind is the guy Graham Stephan. I'm not really a big fan of his videos. I don't really love him, but the guy makes like several $100,000 a year, over $1 million a year from it. So, you think about, I don't think he's on a lot of other platforms, if any. I mean, would you, if you were making that much money, right? Like if you got something that's working, it's kind of don't fix what's not broken. But also I think there is something about planning for the future too, and moving as platforms change. Like I know, one thing that's kind of gaining a little bit traction right now is Clubhouse. And I know John and I have been on it. I don't know if you've been on it yet, Shaynon, or not. Have you?
So I just got my invite to it a couple of days ago. I made an account, but I haven't been on since. I don't know what it is, and I haven't had the time to really hone in on it.
So I saw a funny post from Lauren Hardy, This Mom Flips, where she had a screenshot. Basically, Clubhouse is like a chat room from 1990s AOL. I saw that. I laughed this morning because I said, it's so true. I mean, it's like Zoom without video, but it's invite only currently. So it's like, there's a lot of hype behind it. And I did one last night, and, I'm exploring it or trying it out because it's easy for me because you just open your phone and talk, right? And, I'm good at that, right? Mm-hmm. But, it's basically like, your AOL chat room where you got invited into a room and you're able to talk or text. But it's funny how, stuff comes full circle. So it was a good analogy. Even my wife, she's like, you said it was video. I said, no, it's like Zoom without video. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but it's interesting to see how all these things spin off and take a turn one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's been interesting. Definitely am still getting a handle on it too. But I don't know. It's just like spreading like wildfire through like the quote unquote real estate community online or whatever. So it feels like everybody's hopping on and trying to figure it out. It will be interesting to see how it evolves. We've seen obviously Facebook evolve, Instagram evolve, even TikTok evolve as, years have gone on. They've added new features. They focused on different things. I mean, TikTok was Musically, where it's 15-second videos of people lip syncing. And now it's, up to a minute of people doing anything and everything. Instagram's obviously added IGTV, added video, added messaging, they added reels. I mean, they're adding a ton of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they add over time. I think the interesting part of Clubhouse right now is that it's just like, it literally is kind of like just, almost like networking at a conference in a way of just like, people coming in and out and chiming in and asking questions, things like that. And you can kind of be doing other things and listening a little bit passively, or you can be more active. The one thing that I thought was really interesting that is different from a lot of other things is a lot of times when I would be watching or listening to something in the background and then I pull up another app that has sound, it would stop that other app from playing the sound. So like if I was listening to a podcast and I went on to Instagram or TikTok and it would pull up something with sound, it would stop that. I have to go back to the app, start it again, things like that. This keeps going. So like if you do it purposefully or accidentally, you'll hear two sounds. So it doesn't necessarily let you listen to anything else, but it doesn't also shut it down and force you to do it, which I thought was interesting. So tiny little thing that I noticed. But yeah, I think it's just going to be another platform that somebody's going to pick up and run with, and is going to be, the de facto voice of it. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I think the best component that I've seen with it is it's like a lot of conferences where I think no one wants to hear me talk, right? The podcast works, or they can pick up the phone and call me or whatever. I think where it's going to get its most traction is targeted hour and a half, 45-minute breakouts with 4 or 5 panel members, where you could have a topic where instead of going to major conferences, there could be events, on here as it becomes more platform and social, where it's not invite only, where you could run full conferences basically ad hoc, as opposed to paying thousands of dollars to go sit at these conferences to hear the same stuff. So I think that, and this leads into the next question I have for Shaynon, and I had it written down, is just that, I know you made the jump because you saw social media expanding in the real estate space. I think what 2020 did was showed people that a lot of this old-fashioned way of going about doing business is changing. So I think something like that can take out the government. But where, the social media, changing and technology changing real estate, because real estate it still is so antiquated, right? It's not all these other businesses that are so involved in technology. Real estate is getting there, even with platforms like Zillow and Realtor, and those websites are completely changing from what they were years ago. How do you see social media / technology impacting real estate, where it could be a major driver of major changes over the next blank years?
So I think that, and I'll give part of my business plan for this year, just trying to figure out how to word it where, let me just say it. So I'm part of a real estate group on YouTube, and there are 2 people who they really stood out, and all they focus on for their business, they're both residential, but all they focus on for their business is YouTube videos. That's all they do. I'm sure they are on Instagram and everything. Of course, they're on Facebook too. But they said all of their business came from that. They both made over $500,000 last year just doing that. So I think you're going to see that more and more. And personally, like John, when we first started at Marcus and Millichap, what was the number one way of getting leads?
Okay.
Exactly. I think you're going to see less of that, at least in residential. I don't think cold calling is going to slow down too much in commercial, just because the clientele that you have in commercial, they're not going to be scrolling on Instagram and seeing you there. And a lot of times they're not on YouTube and just hitting, searching, commercial real estate agents in New York City. But for residential, I think you're going to see so many more people using social media as their number one lead source, at number one or number two. And for myself personally, that's number one on my list this year, is to really focus on social media and getting those leads, especially after having the success that I've had with it in the last quarter of 2020.
So I agree. I just read it was a podcast, or it was a video from Follow Up Boss. It's a CRM platform, but they interviewed a guy who he's doing $5 million a year, like income wise. And this is a guy that worked at Keller Williams for years. Then he switched firms, and he had 24 team members at one point. And he said when I was managing a team with all the systems that were in place at the other companies, I became HR, and I stopped doing what I loved, which was listing deals, selling deals, and connecting with people. Now, technology basic, I don't know how long he's, been with the new firm. Now he's working with another firm. He has no team members. He has a virtual assistant and himself. And he basically outlined exactly what you just said. He's only using social media and technology, and he's doing more business than he did with 24 team members. And he has no headaches of dealing with, why did you do that? You're not supposed to list properties like that. You did something wrong. You filled out the document wrong. He said, I don't have to deal with any of that because I have a transaction coordinator, a virtual assistant, and me. That's it. And everything else is done on the technology basis. So, all my calls are done through a dialer online, and all my platforms and follow-up, it's all integrated, and it gives me time to go on meetings, list, sell, and be on social media so I could connect. And he's a residential agent, and I could connect with all my people. So not only do they see me when I meet, but they have a track record, history, and story of me by whatever platform he's on. So I think you're 100% right. I think the residential space will be the first one impacted drastically, because a lot of people now, I've gone to open houses, and you go outside, there's a 3-hour line because you have to do this. You can't go in there. They have to clean the house after everyone leaves. So you start seeing stuff like that. If there's a way to take that process out and put it online with everybody moving and leaving and doing things, I think you're going to have a nice segue in the real estate space on the residential side first. How that trickles down to commercial, I'm not sure. I do think that things will change over time, especially now. I know I was talking to a broker yesterday on a multifamily property in Florida. He said, would it be helpful if I got a national builder to put a full proposal together in my executive summary? So as a buyer from out of state, instead of going by 5,000 a door, he said, if I was able to put a real bid where the guy walked every unit and put a hard bid, would that help you tighten your number up on your offer? I was like, well, it would definitely help. Obviously, you still have to do your own due diligence. But if you had a national builder come in and say it's going to cost 15 a door, and it's $6,600 for this unit, $7,300 for that unit, we got to do new roofs, and they had a detailed bid, it would obviously help you get to the purchase price. It would also help the seller understand, oh shit, my property's not worth as much as I thought because it needs more work. It would also help a buyer to say, well, this is a super reputable company. Well, if I don't want to spend 15, how can I engineer it a way to do less and achieve the same value? Or if it's plug and play and I can hire this builder and they can step into that. So I think like little things like that and presentation wise trickle down, at least in the multifamily space. But I agree with you. I think that technology will change it. And I think that that's an amazing, it worked for the last quarter. Now, how can you, 10X that or multiply that by 100 this year to really achieve goals you want? So I think that's important because I think technology is going to change the real estate space. And I suck at technology, so that's not good for me. But I agree. It's going to, technology is changing the way a lot of things get done. I know even, even Chris, your post the other day, has anyone done this before, right? Give me the good, the bad, the different. That stuff 5 years ago wasn't available. That was just trial by fire or going to network events and talking. You could reach thousands of audience and see what's the right thing to do by a simple post or, a simple question across platforms or whatever it is, or even virtually where someone can walk you through a property and say, hey, check this out. This is why you shouldn't or should do it. So I agree with you. I think there's going to be some game changing things and you're on the cutting edge. You're on the front side of that, knowing that you want to take advantage of what technology is going to offer.
Yeah. And I just one thing to add on to you, John. So for, sorry, hold on one second. So one thing for commercial real estate, the way technology is helping with that is, and this is actually I want to say the reason why I'm able to do residential and commercial is because I use technology for commercial too. Just aside from social media, Compass we have, and I'm sure a lot of other firms have this too, but we have a CRM where you can put everyone in and you can tag everyone. And one of the neighborhoods that I focus in for commercial is the West Village and Greenwich Village. And what I did is I have a tag that it shows just all my contacts who own multifamily mixed-use buildings in those neighborhoods. So if I want to put out a direct message to everyone, not the newsletter, like e-blast that I send out that is obviously to a whole list of people, but like a tailored message to just you about what I can offer you as a commercial real estate agent in the area. Or if I do a market report and I want to make it look like I'm just sending it to you and maybe a few other people, we have what's called a bulk message tool. So I just click the checkbox for everyone who owns in the West Village, multifamily mixed use. I curate an email that's going to go to them. It's going to have a link to to the market report that I did and to the video. So they click on this. Hey, John, I thought you might be interested. I just did this. I know you own a multifamily building in the West Village. Check it out. Let me know what you think. This is what I can do for you. There's no unsubscribe on it. There's nothing. It's just like I just sent that email to you. I can do that to 300 people at a time, and it takes me 5 minutes. Whereas traditionally, if you don't have that tool, you're going to be sitting there either emailing all day or calling all day to get this out to people. Mm-hmm. So I think just using tools like that helps with commercial, as well as, in addition, supplementing that with a newsletter that adds value to everyone and shows you as an expert in the field.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
Yeah. I think one thing that I'm curious to see how it's going to evolve and if it's going to become more like residential is in like the listing space, especially for apartments. I don't know as much about like retail or other listings, but God, the fucking marketing for apartment listings, I think sucks. I mean, even just looking for my own personal apartment to live in, I was like, yeah, this is kind of good. And it's like the one thing that I thought COVID was going to do more of that I've never understood is like, why don't apartment buildings, especially like bigger ones, 100, 300 unit properties, A, B class, why don't they have video walkthroughs of their apartments? Like, especially like take one unit, throw some furniture in it, do a video walkthrough. It'll take you 5 minutes. I've never understood it because when the 3D stuff, sometimes it looks a little bit off on spacing. So if you had the 3D and the video, you just get a little bit better understanding. I've never understood it because even when, one time when John and I were in, I think it was the Jacksonville airport, we saw this, this girl on her laptop, and we've talked about it before, just going through different listings and like looking at stuff. And we probably just, watched her for 15 minutes and we probably looked like really big creeps doing it. But it was awesome for us because you got to see somebody who didn't know we were watching live looking at apartment listings. And it's just like she pulled up, everything was the same. Like there was no way to set it apart. And I know residential, they put a greater, especially on the sale of residential real estate, they put a greater emphasis on the marketing of the property with videos and drones and photos and just pay more attention to it. And I'm curious if some people are going to start doing it and how that's going to affect what they're doing. Have you seen anybody doing anything more with listings, whether it's on the commercial or the apartment/residential side, that's been impactful?
Yeah. So personally, with COVID, when it started, for every listing that I put out, there's always a video tour. And we did a lot of rentals over the summer. I want to say a third of the rentals that I did over the summer, I did sight unseen just because people saw the video that I posted for it, mm-hmm. and it was enough for them. And one thing, so there's two kinds of videos. There's there's three kinds. The first kind is the one where it's like professional, really good. You know, they go through with like a smooth professional camera or whatever, and they hire someone, a videographer. The second one is the one that you see someone just go into an apartment with their cell phone, just like moving around really quickly, just really amateur. And then there's the middle part where I think is actually the most effective is when you go in, it can be on your cell phone, but just like carefully done. Like you're going through slowly, wide angle if you're able to. You're showing everything and you're narrating what it is, so that if I'm on my computer and I'm watching the video, I get a point of view as if I'm there and I can really tell what the place looks like. And the feedback that I've gotten from the videos when I do them like that is people love them. And when they come and actually see the apartment after signing the lease, like, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So I think not just using video, but just using them effectively in that way is really important. So I've done it for not only apartments, but also for my commercial listings. And one reason I do this, like we have a multifamily apartment building listed in the West Village. It has 13 apartments. So we have turnover right now, but every time an apartment is vacant, I go in, I take a video of it. So when I have investors who want to see every unit, tenants right now, they're not letting everyone in because of this virus, but I can say, but I have this video, you know, we can see these vacant ones, but I'm going to send you the video for all of these. And they found that really helpful as well. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll see that more and more. I think a lot of people are behind with that, even with the residential side, but I think you'll see more of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's huge because I compare it back to, like, I think about restaurants all the time, and my sister is the perfect example. But so many people are like this. Anytime we look at restaurants, everybody wants to look at the menu first. Before even deciding to go to a restaurant, they want to look at the menu. And then a lot of times people even want to see pictures of the food. Like I know, especially for a new place, if a place has pictures, I'm way more likely to go there and try it than I am versus a place without it. Cause you're like, okay, that looks good. That doesn't look good. So like for me, I think about the same thing. Like somebody's making a bigger life choice than one meal out of, hundreds, if not thousands, they're going to have out of the year. Right? Like if you have a bad meal, all right, that sucks. You wasted $10, $20, $50, $100. Okay, you'll get over it. You lease an apartment that you don't like. That's, that's 12 months most likely, unless you want to break your lease. So for me, it's like, how are people not providing way more information and way more like specific information? Like even for me, right? Like if I was renovating units, I mean, it's a lot and it would be maybe tough to do on a larger apartment building, but it's like, even for me, like, okay, my personal example is a perfect one. So I just rented an apartment, 1 bedroom. I saw the videos online. I actually went and toured it, but then the apartment I got was on the 4th floor and there was a fireplace in the middle of the dining room and living room. And I didn't know about it. Then I've walked in, I was like, oh shit. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I don't really care, but I would have much preferred the open space just in my head, because the one I saw was open, the video was open, and apparently it's all the 4th floor ones have that, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st don't. So I was like, I didn't even know that coming into it. And right, shame on me, right? It's, I have to take some responsibility, but it's like also that would have just been a very easy thing for somebody to just have a video of and just say like, hey, here's the apartment you're applying for. And I get it, right? 200 videos is a lot, and maybe it's a little bit tough to do. But there's got to be a way to do it where it's like, okay, here's my specific apartment. I can get an understanding for what it is, or even if it's the specific type. So there's one for just the normal one, and then one with the, the fireplace. It's just baffling to me that, these restaurants that are, a tiny, tiny percentage of what people are going to experience in food and restaurants for the year, that places where people are living, aren't meeting up to those standards.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And for me, I got to say, whenever my girlfriend and I are trying to decide a new restaurant to try, I don't even look at the menu first. I actually go to Yelp first and look at the pictures.
Yeah.
So you're right about that.
It is crazy. I'm actually the opposite. I look at the menu. Like anytime we're going somewhere new, I always pull up the menu. When I get there, I know what I'm having, right? But the pictures are always going to look good. I'm not saying I don't look at the pictures, but you're right. Restaurants can do it, and you're talking about $100 meal, or maybe more, maybe less. Now you're talking about where you're going to spend $2, $3, $4, $5, depending on where you live, $1,000 a month. They're like, "Yo, fuck it, take it," right? Like, it is what it is. Deal with it. But you're right. That's where I believe technology is going to change stuff. So I think that it should happen over time. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But it's interesting to see how people care about their food and their place of residence. And whatever.
Yeah, 100%. We're coming up on time. Shaynon, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to learn more about you, follow along, get in touch with you, where can they do all that stuff?
So Instagram, Savvy Broker, my YouTube channel where I do a lot of videos, just taking you on my journey and giving you advice. It's just YouTube/Shaynon Gramling, and same with Facebook.
Awesome. Guys, definitely go check it out. Definitely go follow him on social media. Reach out to him if you have any questions. And if you're looking for anything in the New York City area, definitely be sure to check out what he's got. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you're not already subscribed, it would mean the world to John and I if you would do so. And if you are, please send it to someone that you think would get a tremendous amount of value from this episode. Shaynon, once again, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me.